And welcome to Before Consensus. Today we're going to discuss AI, looking at the SMH, Bitcoin, is the bottom in or not, and the overall state of the macro trade, looking at S&P 500, the Nasdaq, divided by liquidity as we have done before. So let's crack on and let's start looking at AI. So if we look at the SMH, and we have here the SMH ETF, and we have the RSI, Relative Strength Index. What you can see here is each time the Relative Strength Index crossed that level, which it happened in Jan 2015, happened again in March 2018, happened again in September 2021, and it just happened again in July 2026. So if we start looking at when that happened, how long did it take for the markets to bottom? That took 7 months for the AI trade to bottom around August 2015. Then it took how many more? That 9 months to bottom in December 2018. Then it took a bit longer, 13 months to bottom in November 2022, and now we have crossed that recently in July. So if we say as an average 8 months to bottom, that will take us to March 2027 for the correction in the SMH to have ended. If we look at what are the key triggers coming up soon, we have the NVIDIA earnings on Wednesday. The setup is fairly good. Maybe we are up for a final push up. Then if you think about our markets overall going risk on or risk off, we have to look at Bitcoin. Everybody's talking about Bitcoin. So if we look at that, we can see that we have touched a key level where everyone is arguing, is the bear market over or not? We are testing the 21 exponential moving average, which last time that we did that was in March 2023. And once we broke that level, the rally was on for the next 3 years. However, if we look at that in the weekly time frame, we can see that we are testing a key level, which is also the 55 exponential moving average, which has been the bear market resistance band. You see, we are there and we are stuck in there. Last time that we were there was in 2022, or actually February 2023, that we tested. We tested that level, pulled back, and then we went to breakout and to go on for the next 3 years in the bull market. So why is this happening so soon? Something that I tend to look as a proxy for where we are in the Bitcoin cycle is MicroStrategy. And if you look at MicroStrategy, this is something fascinating. MicroStrategy is just hitting the 21 exponential moving average, the same that has done in October 2022. And what happened in October 2022 that is similar to what's happening now? If we look at patterns, we see the 200 exponential moving average crossed the 55 exponential moving average. You can see that cross clearly there. And that's happening exactly the same now, because you could argue that we are actually there, that we are in Jan 2023. You know, we are a similar level hitting that. But the pattern of the 55 exponential moving average crossing the 200 exponential moving average at the same time makes me wonder if we are looking into a fake out and the bottom is not yet in. And something else that I think is worth paying attention to is whether we are living in a simulation or not. If you look at the date range, since MicroStrategy topped until it bottomed, that's 98 weeks, 98 bars. If you look at how long it took for MicroStrategy to bottom to the top, guess what? 98 bars. And if we look at how long it took MicroStrategy from the top, or how long it can take to the bottom, it might be another 98 bars. When is that? That is around the second week of October, 12th of October, 26. So I think I'm going to pay attention whether Bitcoin breaks out that level or this is a fake out to tell whether the risk on or risk off is coming back. Maybe leadership is moving from AI, semiconductors, to risk assets, Bitcoin and software. And then if we look at where are we in terms of the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq, we can see that this is the S&P 500 divided by liquidity. We touched that level, the 2000 level, recently in, when was that? April 2026. We did it again in August 2026. And if we think about what happened when the Nasdaq did that, when the Nasdaq did that, and if I change this to the monthly time frame, we can clearly see, as I mentioned in previous videos, that's the 2000 top. Nasdaq touched that level in 2025, corrected around 25, 26%, and it went on to do a new all-time high, retested the breakout, and it did another all-time high. So if we look at the pattern from the Nasdaq, and assuming that you have not watched my previous videos, or even if you did, we can see how this is repeating again. And if we add exponential moving averages, we can see how the Nasdaq touched the 2000 dot-com bubble top, went to pulled back to the 21 exponential moving average, went on to do a new all-time high, and did the 25% correction. What is if the S&P 500, if we change from the monthly to the weekly time frame, what if the S&P 500 is doing something similar? It might not. It might not. It might just be retesting the breakout and going for a new all-time high. But what if it tested the 2000 dot-com bubble top, pulled back to a 21 EMA, did a new all-time high, and now it's going to do exactly the same that the Nasdaq did and correct to test, go below the 200-day exponential moving average, like the Nasdaq did. That's a possibility, of course. Another possibility is it doesn't need to follow the same pattern, and it just retested the breakout and is going on for a new all-time high, which if we look at NVIDIA earnings, the setup could be constructive. And if you think like Trump is organizing a meeting for the AI top leaders on Wednesday in the White House, this week, on Wednesday, he did the same for crypto, a meeting for all the top leaders in crypto, and crypto went up 30-40%. So what if it's not trying to do the same? What if we look at the S&P 500, you can see here the 21 top touched that trend line. This is a parallel ascending channel. It touched that trend line in December 2021, and that was the macro top. What if now it's doing the same? We just have NVIDIA earnings. We have a pump 4 or 5% to 8,000 or so, and that marks the end of the rally, and then we have a correction. So a lot of things to consider from is the semiconductors, the AI trade, has it entered a correction? Is Bitcoin starting a bull market for the next 3 years or so? Or this was a fake out triggered by the catalyst of the meeting of Trump with the top leaders in the White House on Wednesday this week? Is the S&P 500 following the Nasdaq, or is already retested this week the 2000 top and is going on to do a new all-time high? If you enjoy the content, please do like, subscribe, comment, and thank you so much for listening.